What if I told you that living in a country isn't enough to learn the language? I lived in Italy for 5 years but couldn't speak Italian. Here's what I learned about mastering a language instead. In this video, I'm going to share my experience learning my second and third language, English and Italian, and the lessons that you can learn from these experiences as a professional who wants to speak a language confidently. Hi and welcome. My name is Parisa, and on this channel, we talk about life abroad and all the skills necessary for a successful international experience. We have a holistic approach, meaning that we look at the big picture. We not only go over the language learning and the skills necessary, but also the emotional and mental aspects of your journey. If that's something that is interesting for you, you can subscribe for more videos. Have you ever felt like you're just not good with learning languages? Like no matter how much effort you put in, it's never enough. Before diving into my experience and the lessons, there's something you need to know about me. I don't consider myself to be naturally good at learning languages. And whenever I share this, people usually respond, "That's not true. You speak English well." I get why they say that, but what they don't know is how much effort, repetition, and time it took for me to get to this place. What I mean by being good with languages is the idea that some people seem to have a natural talent for languages and love learning them. They may read or hear something once and they remember it really well and immediately use it in a sentence. I've had friends like that, but that's not the case for me. Maybe it's because of my introverted nature or something else, but I've always needed to practice, work harder, and dig deeper to make progress when learning a new language. And honestly, now I'm grateful for it. It's made me a better teacher and coach because I understand the struggles very well. I believe when something comes naturally to a person, they often can't explain how they do it and teach it effectively. They just know how to do it well. And in my case, because of not having that natural talent for learning languages, I had to analyze every step of my journey, not only with the language, but also mentally and emotionally. And because of that, I can help professionals who just want to use the language for a bigger purpose. I tested all the practices myself and know what works best, not only for me, but also for my students. With that background in mind, let's talk about my language learning experiences and the lessons that you can learn as a professional who wants to use the language for more international experiences. What's the biggest lie about learning a new language? In my opinion, the idea that you only need to live in a country to speak the language well. And I say this from my experiences of learning English and Italian. I started learning English around 13 years old, and at first I hated it. I've talked about my English learning journey more in details on this channel, and if you want to have a detailed version of it, you can watch this video. The link is also in the description. But to sum it up, it took me a long time to get to a point of speaking English confidently because of two limiting beliefs. The first one was that I thought it was too late to learn a new language well at that age. And the second one was that I wasn't good with languages, especially as an introvert, because growing up, I wasn't much of a talker, even in my own native language. And I've often joked about this, that I spoke so little as a child that when I got older, I became a teacher to make up for all the conversations I missed out on. So you can imagine that the idea of speaking a second or even a third language felt very far away for me. But I had to learn them for a bigger purpose, not because I loved learning languages. I had a similar experience with the Italian language too. I started learning Italian at the age of 22, and it was because I wanted to move to Italy for my master's degree. And since it was an international course, I didn't need to learn Italian. On top of that, I was resistant to the idea of learning another language too. I thought it took me nearly 10 years to speak a language confidently. I don't want to go through all the process again. And because I viewed my time in Italy as temporary at the time, I didn't have a strong enough reason to invest in learning Italian well. So the only thing was that I had heard Italians don't speak English very well, so I decided to start attending Italian classes for the basics, just to be able to say a couple of phrases like, hello, how are you? Thank you, and so on. My experience with Italian was even harder than English for two main reasons. In my opinion, Italian is much more challenging than English. And the second one, I lacked the motivation to learn it properly. So for the first 5 years of living in Italy, I didn't speak any Italian because I was in an international program where everyone spoke English. Even though I was physically in Italy, I wasn't immersed in an Italian-speaking environment. So these two different experiences taught me that you don't need to live in a country to learn the language. You just need to create an environment around you that you're exposed to that language as much as possible. And you can do that even before moving to that country, because that was the case for me with English. I learned English perfectly well before ever visiting an English-speaking country. And when I was around 16, I visited the U.S. for the first time, and I was already fluent. I lacked confidence, but that was another skill, which I will be talking about it later in the video. On the other hand, with my Italian, I lived in Italy for almost 5 years without learning the language. And now that I'm also in the Netherlands, I can see many people that are in similar situations. They lived here for 5 or even 10 years, but don't speak Dutch, because you can easily live with the English language in the Netherlands. Almost everyone speaks a perfect English. So if you're waiting to move to a country to learn the language, you're making a mistake. Where you need to start is to expose yourself to the language as much as you can. And it all starts from your motivation. Not external motivation, but internal motivation. If you have a strong internal motivation, you will make it happen. I talk fully about the idea in another video, Power versus Force. I put the link in the description if you want to know the difference, because that's the key element in my English language journey and with my Italian after I decided to live in Italy as a professional. I applied the same system for the Italian language, and it actually worked. Now I really wish I started it even sooner with my Italian language. Once we talked about the foundation you need for your language learning journey, it's time to talk about the biggest challenge on this journey for professionals. In my experience, that has been the idea of managing the mental and emotional side of the journey, because those are the things that make people stop. And I'll explain why. Think about it. Nowadays, we can learn everything that we want to know with the help of the internet. So the problem isn't lack of information. Then why is it that a lot of us struggle with speaking a new language confidently? The problem is in implementation. It's not taking action. To understand this better, let's first talk about the 4 stages of learning. The first one is unconscious incompetence. It simply means I don't know what I don't know. At this stage, you're unaware of what you don't know. For example, you think learning a new language will be easy because you don't understand the technical, mental, and emotional challenges of this journey. After learning a little bit about it, you get to conscious incompetence. Simply put, I know what I don't know. Here you recognize your lack of knowledge or skill. You start learning all the things you don't know about the grammar, vocabulary, pronunciation, all the basics. After that, you'll get to conscious competence, meaning I know how to do it, but I need to focus. At this stage, you can perform the skill, but it requires effort and concentration to just do it. This is when you say, I know and studied all the grammar points, but I just can't speak fluently. This happens because at this stage, you need to pause and think carefully about the grammar, the words you choose, and everything before speaking. At this stage, you need a lot of mental and emotional support and learning how to work with your mind and brain as your best friend. At this stage, you need a lot of repetition with the right method and practice. If you can't overcome this stage, it can be because of two main problems. The first one, using a wrong method. And the second one, getting tired and bored with the practices soon. As a result, you will feel a lot of frustration at this stage of your language learning. Normally, this is the stage at which most non-native speakers give up. And I understand, because when you feel stuck at a stage for a long time and you don't know how to get out of it or manage it, you can get tired and frustrated, and it's natural that you want to give up because you think to yourself, I tried so much and I didn't get the result that I wanted. So you get demotivated, you lose focus and patience, and because of that, you start to believe you can't do it. If you're sure you're doing the right practices, then one of the most important skills you need at this stage is to be patient and repeat these good practices enough times to see the result. You can try to make these practices more interesting. For example, when I was working on my English, I would watch the Harry Potter movies a lot of times. The same movie a lot of times. Some may say, okay, I know the story. I should watch something new. But no, you need to rewatch the same video over and over. Because the first time you watch it, your focus is on understanding the story. The next times you watch, you're focusing on the language, the dialogues, and that's when your language practice starts. I remember with the Harry Potter, I knew every dialogue and conversation in each scene, especially from the first two movies. I would repeat the lines with the characters, imitating their pronunciation and intonation and everything, because I have watched it so many times that it had become part of my own language. And this is actually a technique called shadowing. So my mind could absorb all the details of the language and turn the passive practice of just listening to someone speak into an active practice of speaking myself. So the main challenge here is that nowadays we have so many options that we are not patient enough, and we want to always do something new and more interesting, and repetition can get boring fast. So we just go from one video to another video without even practicing actively. And because we don't take any action and we don't repeat the new things we learn, then it's very difficult to get the fluency that we want in a language. We just keep collecting a lot of new things in our brain, and then without repetition, we forget all of that. So repetition is the secret of mastering any skill. Think how babies learn. They hear the same words over and over for years before they can speak. What do you think would happen if after some time of repetition, we would get tired and stop repeating things to our babies? Repetition is the mother of all skills. And if you struggle with consistency, with the right method, and you want a faster result, an English coach can help you with this stage, because an English coach is familiar with how your mind works and the tricks it plays on you. So get help if you need to. Once you pass this stage, then you get to unconscious competence. Simply put, I know how to do it without thinking. At this level, the skill becomes automatic and effortless. You're fluent in the new language and can carry on a conversation without thinking about the grammar or structure. And at this stage, it's time to work on your confidence and effective communication skills in that language. I've prepared a training about how the journey to confident English looks like, but honestly, you can apply it to any language. I'm applying the same method for my Italian language because I really believe I need to improve my Italian as a working professional too. So you can sign up for this training by clicking on the link in the description to receive the full roadmap. That's all for today's video. Let me know in the comment section about your favorite part of the video. Thank you so much for watching and see you in the next video.